You're really pawning a war medal? What's next, selling your grandfather's flag? That's what someone sneered when Jack Mason walked into the pawn shop, tired, broke, and barely holding on. In his coat pocket was a bronze star, the last thing he owned that ever mattered. He didn't want to sell it. He had to. But then, the metal touched the counter, and something unexpected fell from his pocket. A black and white photo, two soldiers, one of them, was Jack's grandfather. The shopkeeper froze, because that face in the photo, that wasn't just another veteran. That was Spectre 03, a ghost unit, a name erased from history, except in the memories of men who owed him everything. What began as a desperate transaction became the key to unlocking a hidden legacy and a mission that never really ended. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The December wind clawed its way through the narrow alleys of Crestwood, Missouri. It was the kind of cold that made bones ache, a biting reminder that some things, like pain, never truly left. Jack Mason pulled his collar up and tightened his coat. The fabric was thin, fraying at the cuffs, but it was all he had. He'd been sleeping in his father's old truck for 3 nights now. The back seat was cramped, smelled of rust and gasoline, and the heater hadn't worked since the spring of '08. He hadn't eaten since the morning before, just a few crackers he'd found in his glove box. His stomach growled now, but it wasn't hunger that brought him to the corner of 7th and Elm. It was desperation. Jack stood in front of a small, time-worn building with dusty windows and a wooden sign that read, "Warren's Pawn and Trade." Inside, it was warmer. Barely. A small heater rattled behind the counter, humming with a dying effort. Behind the glass display, an older man with a hard stare and a head of white hair looked up. He didn't say anything, just nodded once. Jack stepped forward, his boots scuffing against the wooden floor. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small metal case. His hands trembled slightly as he placed it on the counter. He opened it. Inside was a tarnished bronze star medal. Time had dulled the shine, but not the weight of its meaning. Before the man behind the counter could speak, something else fell out of Jack's jacket. A small photograph, curled edges, black and white, faded but clear. 2 soldiers, arms slung over each other's shoulders, dirt on their uniforms, fire in their eyes, brothers in arms. The older man stared. He didn't move. He didn't blink. Jack reached for the photo, but the man's voice stopped him. "Where'd you get this?" Jack froze. The man stepped closer, carefully picking up the photo with fingers that now trembled more than Jack's. He turned it slightly toward the light, his breath catching. That's Tommy Mason," he whispered. His voice cracked. "Your grandfather?" Jack nodded. "Yes, sir. He raised me after my dad passed. That medal was his." The older man didn't respond at first. He looked at the medal now resting beside the photo. "I thought he didn't make it," he said quietly. "Last time I saw him was in the jungle. We were under fire. I never knew what happened after that." Jack looked down. He did make it, but he never talked much about it. Said some things are better left over there. There was silence for a long while. The heater rattled again. "I was with him that day," the old man finally said. "Quezon, 1968. He saved my life." Jack's throat tightened. He'd heard stories. Fragments, really. His grandfather didn't like to dwell on the past. But sometimes, late at night, Jack would catch him staring out the window, whispering names. "I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for him," the old man said. His voice broke. "And now his grandson's here. Trying to sell this?" Jack said nothing. He couldn't. His jaw clenched hard as he looked away. "I'm not proud of it," Jack finally whispered. "But I've got nothing left. No job, no home. I've tried. God knows I've tried, but I can't sleep, can't work. That medal's the only thing I've got that matters, and I need to eat." The old man, Warren, took a step back, leaning heavily on the counter. He looked older now, tired, but something glinted behind his eyes. Something fierce. "Come with me," he said. Jack hesitated, then followed him through a back door into a storage room cluttered with dusty boxes and forgotten furniture. Warren rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a worn ledger. He flipped to a page, eyes scanning it, then looked up. You know what your grandfather told me before that ambush, he said. He said, if I don't make it and you do, find something worth staying alive for. He closed the book. I think he sent you here. Jack didn't know what to say. Warren pressed the metal back into Jack's palm. You're not pawning this, he said firmly. Not today. Then he handed Jack a key. There's a room upstairs. Bed's clean. It ain't much, but it's warm. You work here as long as you need to. No questions. Jack stared at him. Why? Warren looked him in the eye. Because once your grandfather didn't leave me behind, and I'm sure as hell not leaving his grandson out in the cold. Jack's fingers closed around the key. For the first time in months, he felt something in his chest. Not pain, not fear, hope. The stairs creaked under Jack's boots as he made his way to the second floor. He hadn't expected warmth, but somehow the room felt more like shelter than anything he'd known in years. There was a small bed with a clean gray blanket, a nightstand, and a window facing the street, cracked, but still intact. He sat down, placing the metal on the nightstand with care, like it was something sacred. He stared at it for a long while, then finally lay back. Sleep didn't come easy. It started the same way it always did, the whistling wind of Kandahar at night, the scent of burned rubber and diesel, the voice of Lieutenant Harris shouting for cover. Then came the blast. Jack sat bolt upright in bed, his chest heaving, eyes wide. Sweat poured down his back, despite the cold. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. He reached for something, his rifle, his helmet, but found only empty air. Then came the voice from downstairs. Calm, grizzled. You okay up there? It was Warren. Jack swallowed. Yeah, sorry. Don't be. Been there. Silence. Then, faintly, a record player began playing something soft downstairs. Some old Johnny Cash tune. Jack leaned back, the music grounding him, calming the storm. For the first time in a long time, the nightmare passed without dragging him under. Morning came gray and slow. Jack washed up using the basin in the hallway, put on the cleanest clothes he had, and headed downstairs. Warren was already there, wiping dust off a glass case. He nodded toward a half-eaten pastry and a cup of black coffee. Eat, then I'll show you around. Jack muttered a quiet thanks and obeyed. The coffee was strong, bitter, perfect. The day passed with surprising ease. Jack swept the floor, moved some heavy boxes from the storage room, even fixed the hinge on a cabinet that had been squeaking for years. Warren didn't say much, but he watched, closely, as if measuring something. Just before closing, an older woman came in to pick up a silver locket she'd left weeks ago. Jack retrieved it carefully, cleaned it, and handed it to her with both hands. She smiled, placed a wrinkled $10 bill on the counter, and whispered, Your grandfather would be proud. Jack froze. How did you know my... But she was already walking away. He turned to Warren, who raised an eyebrow. This town's small, the old man said. People remember things. Later that night, after they'd locked up, Warren offered Jack something unexpected. A drink. I only drink on 2 occasions, he said, pouring 2 small glasses of bourbon. When I'm remembering something now, or trying to forget it. They sat in silence for a long while. You know, Warren said finally, I've never had kids, never married. This shop's been my world. Jack nodded. Me neither. No wife, no kids. Just war buddies and ghosts. Warren sipped slowly. Your grandfather wasn't just a good soldier. He was a good man. But there's something I never told anyone. Jack looked up. Warren reached beneath the counter and pulled out an old lockbox. Dusty, heavy. He set it between them, tapped it twice. He gave me this, just before that last firefight. Told me to keep it safe. Said I'd know when to open it. Jack frowned. You never did? Warren's eyes were hard. Didn't feel like my place. He handed the box to Jack. Maybe it's yours now. Upstairs, in the quiet of his room, Jack stared at the box. The keyhole was rusted but still intact. And strangely, the key Warren had given him for the room upstairs looked like it might fit. Click. The lid creaked open. Inside was a small stack of old letters tied in twine, a photograph, and something wrapped in oilcloth. Jack untied the twine and read the top letter. His grandfather's handwriting. Steady, Bold. To whoever finds this, whether friend, family, or stranger, there are things I never said out loud, not because I was ashamed, but because some truths weigh too much for a young heart. Jack's hands trembled as he turned the page. If you're reading this, I'm likely gone. But you deserve to know the truth. I wasn't just a soldier. I was part of something bigger, something secret. Beneath the letter was a map, hand-drawn, marked with strange symbols and coordinates. And then the oilcloth inside it, an old military patch. But not just any patch. It was black, with no insignia, just a single stitched word, Spectre. Jack's blood ran cold. He'd heard of Spectre. It wasn't officially part of the military. It was whispered about in Afghanistan, in Iraq. A covert division, black ops, soldiers who answered to no one. Ghosts. His grandfather? No, it couldn't be, could it? Downstairs, Warren poured himself another drink. He stared up at the ceiling, where Jack now sat in stunned silence. And he whispered to the air, "Guess it's time he knew." Jack didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. The box sat open on the floor, its contents spread across the blanket. Every time he reached for something, the letters, the map, the patch, his hand trembled. Spectre. It wasn't just some ghost story among soldiers. It was real, and his grandfather had been one of them. Jack read through each letter slowly. Most were written in the years following the war, some as late as the mid-'80s. They spoke of regret, of sacrifice, of missions that never made the news. One talked about a rescue in Laos that wasn't supposed to happen. Another described a hidden cache, a supply drop that had never been recovered, marked on the enclosed map. The more Jack read, the less he recognized the man he thought he knew. At sunrise, Jack descended the stairs with the map in hand. Warren was already at the counter, sipping coffee like he hadn't moved all night. Jack held out the map. "You ever seen this before?" Warren took it, furrowing his brow. "That's Camp Caldwell. Used to be a covert base during the Cold War. They tore it down in the 90s. What's this mark here?" Jack pointed. "A cache. Supplies, maybe weapons. Hidden before evacuation." Warren looked up. "You thinking of going there?" Jack hesitated. "I don't know, but I can't ignore this." The older man nodded slowly. "I've still got friends in Kentucky. Caldwell's not far. You'll need a truck." Jack blinked. "Wait, you're serious?" Warren leaned in. "Jack, you're holding something bigger than a family heirloom. You're holding a piece of American history no one's supposed to know." Later that day, Warren gave Jack the keys to a green Chevy pickup from the shop's back lot. "It runs, just don't push it too hard." Before Jack could leave, Warren stopped him. He handed over a folded piece of paper. "Names, people your grandfather trusted. Some are still alive. You find them, you might find answers." Jack took the list, eyes scanning the names. One stood out, Raymond Kessler. It took 2 days of driving, a flat tire, and sleeping in the truck to reach a small town outside Lexington, Kentucky. Jack stopped at a diner, asking the waitress if she knew a Raymond Kessler. She glanced sideways. "Ray Kessler? You mean the hermit out by the old rail yard?" Jack found the house, more a shack than a home, half covered in vines. The door hung crooked. He knocked. Nothing. Then a gruff voice from behind him. "You military?" Jack turned. A man in his late 70s stood behind him, beard gray and long, holding a shotgun in one hand and a can of chewing tobacco in the other. "Depends who's asking." Jack raised both hands. "Name's Jack Mason." "My grandfather was Tommy Mason." The shotgun lowered an inch. "Tommy? You his boy?" "Grandson." Raymond stared for a moment, then motioned toward the shack. Inside was chaos. Books, ammo boxes, old uniforms. But it was the walls that stopped Jack cold. Clippings, maps, photos, dozens of them, Spectre insignias. "This isn't just some conspiracy," Jack said softly. Raymond sat heavily in a chair, lighting a cigarette. "No, it was real. We were the shadows behind the stars." Jack laid out the patch, letters, and map. Raymond stared. "That map's real. Last drop before we pulled out. I was supposed to recover it, but things went sideways." Jack leaned forward. "I want to go there." Raymond looked up. "That place is sealed tight, off limits, maybe even booby-trapped." Jack didn't blink. Then I guess I'll need help. Raymond gave a slow, crooked smile. Back in Crestwood, Warren closed the shop early. He looked at the now empty bed upstairs and ran a hand through his white hair. Then he opened a drawer, pulling out a dusty photo. Him, Tommy Mason, and three others, laughing in a jungle clearing. Underneath it, tucked deep in the back of the drawer, was a silver tag. Engraved with the word Spectre 04. The road to Camp Caldwell was overgrown and half forgotten, a path more suited for ghosts than men. Jack drove slowly, the old Chevy bouncing on loose gravel and cracked pavement. Raymond sat beside him, silent, a map spread across his lap and a revolver resting on the dash. This place isn't just off-grid, Raymond muttered. It was erased. They stopped where the trees thickened. The entrance to the old base had been swallowed by forest. A rusted sign barely clung to the frame. Caldwell Research Facility, property of U.S. Department of Defense. Jack pulled the truck off the road. "You sure about this?" he asked. Raymond didn't answer. He simply opened the glove box, pulled out a flashlight, and got out. The trees whispered above them, and the air felt heavier with each step. They moved through brush and bramble, following the map carefully. Raymond knew the rhythm of the land, every incline, every shadow. It was muscle memory. Finally, they reached it, a concrete hatch hidden beneath rotting leaves and pine needles. Jack dropped to his knees, brushed it clean. The hatch was locked. Heavy, military grade. Raymond reached into his coat and pulled out a worn key, rusted at the edges. "I was supposed to come back, 40 years late, but here we are." The lock clicked. The door groaned open. Inside, the air was stale, metallic. The bunker stretched deep into the earth, lined with shelves, crates, and dust. Jack's flashlight caught words stenciled on old boxes. Medical supplies. 1971. Confidential proper date of Spectre unit. He swallowed. Raymond knelt beside a crate, pried it open with a crowbar. Inside, MREs, sealed. Guns, oiled and wrapped. A satchel marked S4. "Still here," he whispered. After all this time. Jack wandered deeper. At the end of the hall, he found a steel cabinet. On the door, a plaque. "To those who walked in shadow so others could stand in light." He opened it. Inside, letters, photos, a small recorder. On it, a tape labeled T. Mason, in final debrief. Jack hesitated. Then he pressed play. "This is Sergeant Thomas Mason, Spectre 03. Mission code, Emberfall. If you're hearing this, I'm either dead or have finally accepted that silence won't save anyone. We did things, necessary things, but we lost ourselves in the process. This cash isn't just supplies, it's evidence of what we were ordered to do, of what was covered up. I kept this to remind me that ghosts are real, and sometimes they wear our faces." Jack's hand shook. Raymond stepped in behind him, eyes wide. Before they could speak, a sharp click echoed in the hall. They spun. A red dot hovered on Jack's chest. "Step away from the cabinet," a voice ordered. From the shadows emerged two men in black tactical gear, unmarked, silent. One held a suppressed rifle. The other, a phone. Raymond cursed. "They followed us." Jack raised his hands. "Who are you, he asked. The man with the phone spoke, calm, cold. "You're trespassing on federal property. Hand over the recorder and step away." Jack didn't move. "You don't know what this is," he said. "We know exactly what it is." Raymond's hand twitched near his coat. Jack shook his head. "Not yet." The man approached slowly. "You have no idea the fire you're playing with." Jack looked down at the recorder, then at the plaque on the door. Then something snapped. He threw the tape across the floor. Boom! It shattered against the wall. The soldiers flinched, and Raymond moved. In a flash, he drew his revolver and fired. One shot, center mass. The man with the rifle fell back. The other lunged forward, but Jack slammed the cabinet shut and tackled him. They hit the ground hard, rolling over dust and rusted bolts. Raymond grabbed the remaining gear. "Go, go." Jack kicked the man off, grabbed the recorder's wasting, what was left of it, and ran. They didn't stop running until they reached the truck. Jack slammed the door shut, keys rattling in his hands. Behind them, shouts echoed from the trees. "Tires!" Raymond barked. "They'll shoot him!" Jack hit the gas. Bullets cracked past the window. The truck roared to life, fishtailed, and surged back down the trail. They drove for hours, not speaking. Only when the highway lights came into view did Raymond finally mutter, "Spectre's still alive." Jack gripped the wheel. "No, they're just ghosts now. But ghosts, they don't forget." 2 weeks later, the bell above the pawn shop door chimed softly as Jack stepped inside, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The cold outside clung to him like an old regret. His boots were muddy, his coat torn, but his eyes, they were clearer than they'd been in years. Warren looked up from behind the counter. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. "You made it back," he said. Jack nodded. "Raymond's resting up at the VA hospital. Took 2 rounds to the leg." Still griping, Warren poured a cup of coffee and slid it across the counter. Jack took it with both hands. "Find what you were looking for?" Warren asked. Jack stared into the dark liquid. "I think I found what he wanted me to find." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small metal canister, the remnants of the broken recorder. Inside, protected in a hidden compartment, were duplicates of the documents. Photos, coordinates, testimonies, all encoded, just like his grandfather had written. Jack placed it gently on the counter. "This belongs somewhere, it won't be buried." Warren nodded. "I know someone in DC quiet type. Used to run archives for defense. He'll know what to do." Jack exhaled. The weight was no longer just on his back. It was shared now. That weekend, Jack helped Warren clean out the attic. Boxes upon boxes of old military gear, medals, photographs, forgotten remnants of men who had come and gone. Among them, Jack found something unexpected, a sealed envelope addressed in careful handwriting. "To Jack, when the time is right." He looked to Warren, who only nodded once. Inside the envelope was a photograph. His grandfather, younger than Jack had ever seen him, standing beside 5 other men, Spectre agents. One of them, unmistakably, was Warren. On the back, a single message: "You can bury a medal, but you can't bury a promise." Beneath that, a handwritten signature: Thomas Mason. Jack folded the photo and placed it in his wallet, beside the one that had first fallen in the pawn shop. Days turned to weeks. Jack stayed in Crestwood. He worked the shop during the day, fixed up the attic room at night, and every Sunday he drove to the VA hospital with a new book for Raymond and a strong cup of black coffee. Raymond never said thank you. He just nodded, and that was enough. Then one morning, months later, a convoy rolled into town. 3 black SUVs, no markings. Warren looked out the window. "Friends of yours?" Jack said nothing, just stepped outside. The doors opened to Fidady Nathan, and from the lead vehicle stepped a tall man in uniform. Full dress, stars on the shoulder. A general. He approached Jack, hand outstretched. "Sergeant Mason, I've read your grandfather's letters. You honored him well." Jack shook his hand, unsure. The general looked around. "We've reopened a certain project quietly, and we could use someone like you, someone who understands the cost." Jack hesitated. He looked back at the shop, at Warren watching from the window, at the place that saved him. Then he looked down at the key still hanging on his belt, the room upstairs. "I think I'm needed here," he said. The general nodded once. "Then we'll consider this post covered." He turned back to his men. But before stepping away, he reached into his coat and handed Jack something wrapped in cloth. Jack unwrapped it. It was a new medal, fresh, untarnished. On the back, a single inscription: "For walking through shadows and bringing the light with you." That night, Jack sat alone in the attic room. The wind howled outside, but he didn't mind. He placed the new medal beside his grandfather's on the nightstand. Then, for the first time in a long time, he slept. And the ghost let him rest. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way, often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition. Some just need to know that today, someone isn't going hungry. And sometimes, that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever. Subscribe to Grateful Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost.